All righty. Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. For some reason, was having some technical difficulties. I had multiple things created, and for some reason, I deleted one of them, and it threw off the whole shooting shebang. So, nonetheless, thank you for bearing with me. I know we're about 10 minutes to or starting off late, but better late than never, as they say. And we've got Mr. Terry joining us today, and he's going to be talking a little bit. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff, but today he's going to be covering a specific question that he was asked offline, and is going to go ahead and cover that off the bat. And we're going to be deep diving into some battles, incidences, and some questions that viewers have sent in over time. So Mr. Terry, hope you're doing well today, and the floor is yours for you to go ahead and get started.
Life is good. I got to say hello to Mary Jo before she has to drop off.
Yeah. Hey,
Um,
MJ.
with all the new listeners that Bud's got, which it just blows my mind how much this thing has grown over the past year or so. That's a spam call coming in. Yeah. So one of the questions that a new listener, and they made it clear that they were a new listener, but they've listened to bits and pieces before. They wanted to hear more details about the mission when I got shot the first time. Um, and Bud and I talked. I don't know. The best way to do it, I guess, is we'll just talk about the mission, what it involved, why we were there in the first place, and what we were doing, and all that. So, on hey Dan, March 25th, 1969, we were sent in to Lima 6 AO. A recon team had discovered what they believed to be a truck park, and they based that upon the sounds that they heard at night when they were in their RON, and they could hear vehicles driving, they could hear vehicles stop, they could hear tailgates dropping, engines turn off. Later, they'd turn back on, and the trucks would go. So they sent, and I'm trying to remember, I don't remember if it was two platoons of our hatchet force or if it was the whole company. It's been too many years, and I've slept since then. Anyway, we went in and we set up on a hill. And Bud, there's a picture in my pictures. You know, the one where we always talk about how there's multiple trails and you can see, and there's that big ridge line. Well, in Parner's book, it says that that was Lima 6. And if it is, I can point out on that picture right where we went. Um, so we went in on March 25th, and we spent the night on a hill. And based on recon that we did, the road was right directly below us, and we believed that the truck, whether it's a truck park or just a refueling, whatever, we believed that it was right down at the base of the hill from where we were spending the night. So, and this is where we divert a little and tell the funny stories. I had a dream that night that the next morning I was going to get shot in the left leg. You know, it's just one of those weird things. And, you know, how do you explain it? So, anyway, the next morning, we're up at, we usually were getting ready around 6 in the morning, because 6 o'clock in the morning was usually when the NVA would lob some mortars our way, since they always knew where we were at. Anyway, we get done eating and we form up and we move down off the hill. And the road is right at the bottom of the hill. Now, we heard trucks during the night too, coming and going. So we get to the bottom of the hill, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. And I was on the left. If we formed a straight line, I was on the far left with my squad. And all hell breaks loose. And so I'm going to take my squad and I want to move them in what we call a wheeling motion. In other words, wheel around to our right. And I thought, well, we can come in behind the bad guys and take them out that way. Well, as soon as we get off the road and into the woods, this NVA pops up in front of me, and I see him, he sees me, and I rolled like Hollywood. I rolled and came up on one knee, and just as both of us are getting ready to fire at each other, John Holen fired a law rocket at one of the bunkers, and the bad guy and I fire at each other. We're like maybe 40 feet apart, something like that. We're pretty close. And at the same second that we both fired, that law rocket went off. So I feel something hit my ankle, and that's the bunker that the law rocket hit, or what's left of it. And I go to fire again because that guy's still standing up, and it's like, I'm a pretty damn good shot. I know I didn't miss. He looks at his rifle and throws it on the ground. My gun jams, and later on they determined that the powder that they were using to make the M16 ammo was the wrong powder for the jungle environment. And so what happened is it didn't extract the round that I fired. It didn't extract the round, and it tried to feed another one in. So my rifle's useless. This guy's done thrown his on the ground. I'm like, what the hell is going on? So it's an SKS rifle, holds 5 rounds. So he got off 1 round, and he starts to run into the woods. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? My rifle won't fire. So I threw a grenade, and I counted 2 because on 4 it's going to go off. So I counted 2 and threw it. Well, it hit the bamboo and it bounced back and went off over us. And fortunately, nobody got injured. So then it's like, okay, what am I going to do now? And at this point, I still don't realize that I've been shot. I thought maybe that law rocket sent a piece of shrapnel and it hit me in the ankle. But then if you think about it, the law went off over on the right, and what the hell is that?
He's gone.
He's gone.
He's gone.
And then I'm shot in the left ankle. Well, I grabbed my knife and I was going to go after the guy with my knife, and then I'm like, nah. Well, then all the shooting stopped. So,
you're bleeding? Are you bleeding at this point?
Okay. So I sit down on the edge of the road, and there's a picture later on after I'm bandaged up, but you can see I'm sitting on the edge of the road, which the road is sunk down maybe 2 feet from the ground level. And I don't like this new screen thing where you got 2 screens.
Yeah, it's saying I've got 2 links going.
So anyway, there I am. You can see how the road is sunken down from all the traffic, and there's a bunker right there behind me. Anyway, I take my boot off because all I'm thinking at this point is that shrapnel hit me in the ankle. And I take my boot off, and I see this little hole, literally about the size of a pencil, in between the laces and the gusset on my boot. And I'm like, this wasn't here this morning. So then I look at my sock, and, we're wearing those faded out OD colored wool and polyester socks. I look at the sock, and there's a hole in it. So I peel the sock down, and there's a bullet hole in my ankle. There's no blood, absolutely no blood whatsoever. So this wasn't a blood and guts thing. I look, and the bullet had gone directly in the front of my ankle, and it went around to the ankle bone, and you could see the outline of the bullet. It had hit the ankle bone and turned around, and the bullet was facing back out the way it came in. So I'm like, oh shit, I've been shot. So I probably sat there. It seemed like 10 minutes. I don't think it really was. It probably just a couple of minutes. Building up the nerve, we carried 3 little morphine syrettes in our right chest pocket. So we all knew, everybody carried them in the same place. So you would know if you had to administer one to somebody else, you'd know where he kept his morphine. So I sat there for about however long it really was, stuck it in my thigh, waited for it to kick in. So once it kicked in, which was actually fairly quick, I always carried my Pen EE camera with me because you never know. I said, well, I'm going to put my boot back on. So I put my sock and my boot back on. And Ali Garcia, the medic, he comes and looks at it, and he wraps me in an ace bandage, but I've still got my boot on because you don't want it to swell up to where you can't get your boot on and then you're barefoot. So I get up, I got my camera, I go get the rifle. Well, the reason the guy threw the rifle down was because, like I said, I'm a pretty good shot. My bullet hit the bolt of the rifle, so he's holding it up like this. And my bullet hit the bolt, which another inch or more, and it would have been above the rifle, and it would have been right through his nose. But anyway, that's so the picture, there's a picture of me standing there holding the rifle. So I brought the rifle back and all that. And it was probably an hour maybe before a King Bee came, and Lieutenant Sheridan was killed and I was wounded. Lieutenant Sheridan was killed. So they brought a King Bee in to take the body and take me back to, we went back to Doc Toda, the launch site. So one of the questions that this person said, they were a new listener, they asked if I would not mind talking about it, and I don't. I want to stress, yeah, I was shot 3 different times in 7 months, but the term being shot, 2 of them were flesh wounds. One was right here on the side of my head, and the other was in the side. This one got me a month in Japan, but when you hear about, or I know I saw myself, guys that were really shot bad, I don't feel like my wounds were much to write home about. I mean, I consider very fortunate that it was what it is. I mean, yeah, I get a month in Japan, but that was like a mini vacation. Okay, I'm trying to read. I have no idea. Let's try. So I pause my story. If it shuts down, we'll start again and again, right? Okay. So Bud's gonna try to shut down and get rid of this.
I mean, we've got 31 people in here right now, but I was just noticing the guys have told me there's 2 links showing that I'm live at the moment. So, I mean, we've got 40 people in here right now. I say we keep going.
Just keep going. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Bear with us then.
Yeah.
So the person asked me if it wouldn't be too hard for me to talk about the mental aspect of being shot or wounded. Because really, it could be either one. I mean, you can have mortal wounds. You don't have to get shot. When I first realized that I'd been shot, my first thing was, well, it ain't too bad because it's in my ankle. My next thing was I was pissed off because I'd been shot, because I'd only been in country roughly 6 months. And my thing was, from my background, wrestling and lifting weights and being in pretty damn good shape. My only concern was, what kind of damage did this bullet do? And am I going to be able to return to duty quickly? So my perspective on being shot was more one of just being pissed off. Yeah, the guy that shot me didn't survive. We'll just leave it at that. Bud and I have decided we're not going to show the picture of him. But and as time went on, and I saw a lot of guys either shot or injured by shrapnel or whatever, there's a lot of different things that go on in a person's head. And, of course, the key one is, am I going to survive? And I did. So I don't know how much more I can go into that. That was my mental perspective on it. So we got medevaced and went back to Doc Toe, and they said, well, you're not injured that bad. They took Sheridan's body to the 4th Division's mortuary that was right there at the launch site. And they said, we'll keep you up here until we go back to the FOB at 5 o'clock. And we'll give you another shot of morphine. So they gave me another shot of morphine, and it does what it's supposed to do. I was feeling little to no pain. So at 5 o'clock, they shut down the launch site and everybody goes back to the FOB. They take me to the dispensary, and Lou Maggio, who was the head, I don't know what to call him, head medic.
Head medic, yeah.
I'm like, they're looking at me and they're cleaning it up, putting some antiseptic on it and whatever. And they give me a penicillin shot or whatever it was. I guess some penicillin. And I said, are you going to put me out when you take the bullet out, or are you going to do it with me awake? And he says, I ain't taking that bullet out. And I'm like, well, why not? And he says, oh, you're going to get a free trip to Japan out of this or somewhere else. And it's like, no, take the bullet out now. And he says, if I take it out now, the danger is because of the heat, bacteria grows so fast over there in that 120-degree heat. He says there's a risk of infection. So we'll clean it up. We'll send you back to the yard camp. You can pack a bag and whatever tonight. And we'll have a chopper come pick you up in the morning and take you down to Pleiku to the hospital. So that's what they did. I went back to camp. I packed a bag, and I was able to pack. I packed some civilian clothes. I wore a uniform and went to Pleiku. We get to Pleiku. For me, this is it leads into another one of the funny stories. So this doctor, this captain, he's looking at my toe tag, and everybody that got wounded, if it was possible during, once the shooting's all over with and that, they put a toe tag on you with your name and location of incident, whatever. Well, mine, the toe tag says classified. So this doctor is like, well, where were you at? It says classified. Were you in Laos? Because he knew I was in special forces, and, it says classified. So right away, were you in Laos? I said it was classified. Just take the bullet out and be done with it. So are you allergic to any drugs? And I said, pentothal. Well, why? And I said, because I get violent in recovery. Well, how do you know? And I said, use it and find out. By that time, I'm getting pissed because this guy's really being, well, all I remember is waking up, and they got me strapped on a gurney, and this doctor is leaning over me again saying, were you in Laos? Well, it turned out they used pentothal to put me asleep. And all I remember is I got my left arm free from the strap on the gurney. I took out 3 of his teeth, knocked him out cold, and tipped the gurney over. And then I asked the nurse, I said, did he use pentothal? And she said, yeah, that's what we use. And it's like, hey, I told you, to this day, 41 surgeries, I tell them, are you allergic to anything? And I always tell them pentothal. Well, we don't use that anymore. And I said, I'm allergic to it. So if I don't tell you, and for some reason you would use it, somebody's going to get hurt. Anyway, so that was my story of being shot. That night after I got medevaced, the company or 2 platoons, whatever we had, stayed in, and they got hit all night long with rockets and mortars and probably RPGs and whatever, and had some more people wounded. I know Vernon Ward, my bud, he was wounded. John Holland had a sucking chest wound. And this is a mystery that I've never been able to get resolved, is John, after they pulled him out and John went to the hospital, he actually came to see how I was doing before they shipped me off to Japan. And I think it was on Robert No's website, and this has probably been 20 years ago, it showed that Holland died of non-hostile injuries. Well, that information is no longer there. So all I know is that he had a sucking chest wound. Mm-hmm. But by the time I came back from the hospital a month later, he was no longer at the yard camp. And I never did find out what happened to him. And I'd love to know what happened to him, because that really stuck with me, that he took the time with his serious injury to come check on me and see how I was doing. That just really has always been with me. And nobody can seem to tell me what happened to him. But anyway, I'm assuming that he probably got medevaced back to the States. I don't know. So enough about that.
There was a spirited debate going on. Well, not debate. People were just in the SOG group. We got our little group. We're talking that some of the guys, I think you noticed it. We're talking about how many first group guys, not former to where they came to 5th and then we're in the 5th flash, but how many first group guys did you see in country where they actually still had the 5th or the 1st flash on their berets?
Zero,
even at Khartoum.
And I'll tell you, I know from reading some of the books and talking to other guys, I know that there were guys there at various times. You got to remember, I was at the yard camp, which was about 3 miles down the road from the FOB. Mm-hmm. So if there were snakebite teams at the FOB, I hardly ever went to the FOB. So no, I never saw a single first group flash the whole time I was there.
That's always been so interesting, because well, I mean, I guess unless you were there in a short 6-month period of time when sorry guys, I get getting over cold. When a full snakebite team came over, or maybe a replacement or 2 came out, but then you're with your hatchet force guys, and most of those guys were trained for recon. So unless you were at an award ceremony or happened to see this dude with his beret, you wouldn't have seen his first.
If a guy's wearing a boonie hat, there's no flash on a boonie hat, right?
No.
So, yeah, all I can say is that personally, I never saw a first group flash. I know they were there because other guys say they were there, and I have no reason to doubt that. But I just personally never saw one.
I was interested in that because, just like you said, there was Mr. Ken Bird, I think, commented. He was at CCN in the comments section, and he ended up saying as well that he didn't. And I know for a fact there were a ton of snakebite guys. Well, not a ton because there were only teams, but there were quite a few guys over there at that time in '69 that were first group TDY with him. So very interesting how that pops up.
Keep in mind that part of the reason I think for the snakebite teams, from what I've heard over the years, we were taking so many casualties that we were just hurting for people to run the missions. And that's why they were sending these guys TDY from Okinawa, because in '68, when I was going through training group, I mean, they were cranking us through. I mean, if you look at it, I started training group at the end of January, '68, and graduated at the end of August '68 and went straight to NAM. But so that's how quick they were cranking us out.
I got another question about this, and I'm not going to give this guy the time of day or mention his name or anything, but there's a guy that was a S4 officer at CCN in whenever John Caviani, I believe 71, and I 71. Think you know who I'm talking about, yeah. This guy, and calls him a traitor, that he broke and was helping the Vietnamese and all of that, and he is super down on a lot of the recon men, but he says the guys like you, Till, Lynn, all of the 68, 69 baby SF guys that got in, that was the beginning of the downfall of the SF standard that had been previously set. And that makes my blood absolutely boil when I see that. I have to hold my tongue, or else it gets bad online.
I would love to run into that guy in a dark alley sometime. I think he's a mental case. I really do.
He's a convicted child
molester, right? Yeah. So I don't think we ought to give him the time of day.
No. But I was curious about what your thought was, because in our view, all of the people that have learned about SOG, most of you guys were the baby SF guys that came in and absolutely blew the doors off of unconventional warfare, leading SOG and RTs and hatchet forces. I mean,
the interesting thing. So on average, most of the guys that I went over with and went through training group, there was a lot of exceptions. Like, for instance, my buddy Ricardo Davis, he was an E6 because he had prior service in Vietnam. He'd been over with, I think, the 101st.
Yes, sir.
But so many of us were 19 or 20 years old. We were young bucks, and we drank the Kool-Aid, and we knew, because they told us that we were the baddest mothers in the valley. And I guess we tried to live up to that, and really, when I first got there, my platoon sergeant was Lloyd O'Daniels. God love him. I love that guy. I learned
absolute
so much.
Legend.
And unfortunately, he passed 2 years ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I would sit with him and his wife at SOAR at the banquet and that. But he told me, he said, listen and learn everything you can from the guys that have been there, done that already, because that's what's going to keep you alive. And I tried to do that. Lloyd was one of them guys. He was a good old boy, real easygoing, but he had the experience, and so eventually he became a covey rider. Lloyd is the one who taught me how to work airstrikes, because, again, back in the day in '68, they're trying to rush us through training group as quick as they can to fill the pipeline with warm bodies. And so we didn't learn anything about working airstrikes or any of that. And Lloyd taught me a lot about working airstrikes and actually let me be on the radio and work airstrikes during missions before he went off to become a Covey rider.
You talking about experience? Look, I mean, look at that. I mean, he was with
Just look at him.
SOG and then Project 404 with the CIA,
Oh, yeah.
Quezon, Khartoum. I've got a picture of him at Quezon as well. I mean, this guy, I mean, he should be a household name like Joe Walker and Jerry Shriver. I mean, he's one of the best that's ever been fielded by SOG.
Yeah. So the nut job, yeah, we don't even need to give him the time of day. But learning from the experienced guys, because keep in mind, we had guys in the early days, we had guys that had combat experience from as far back as World War II and in Korea. So there's a lot to be learned. And if you soak up everything you can and talk to these guys, like when you're not on a mission, like back at the yard camp, you're sitting around in the club and it's a real close knit group of people. Learn all you can from them. The recon guys talk about how they would do the same thing down at the club, down at the FOB. They'd talk about exchanging war stories, but not for the purpose of glorifying the war story, but for learn from other guys' experiences. Okay.
Did you when you were working and I guess I should say when you first got on the compound and these new guys were around and you just mentioned Lloyd taking you under his wing to let you learn and teach you more properly about airstrikes, were you intimidated, or did you know right off the bat I'm in something serious here and I can't have time to be embarrassed or whatever, and I need to learn what the hell's going on here?
I'm trying to think of a way to explain it without making
Because these are giants. I mean,
real badass. So I'll just tell it like it is.
yeah.
My
That's why we love you.
background, my dad was a World War II veteran. He flew bombers over Europe in World War II, got shot down 3 times, and lived to tell about it. I grew up with this military mentality. You know, back in the 50s, growing up, I mean, what do? You go out after breakfast on Saturday and Sunday. You go out and you find your buddies and you go play war. And I read a lot of books about World War II and that. And from a mental standpoint, I think I had nothing. My dad got killed in a plane crash, private plane crash, when I was 16. So I've been exposed to death and all that. And from a mental standpoint, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I realized that if I was going to live through it, I needed to learn everything I could. And that mentality of learning as much as you can about as many different things as you can, I carried that through in my career as a manager with the telephone company. Is the more jobs you can do and learn and do them well, the more valuable you are to the company. Well, in SOG, it was the more you can learn, the better your chances of staying alive. And I don't know anybody that was in SOG that would honestly tell you that they were never scared.
Oh, I've yet to speak to a man.
It's pure bullshit, and it's probably somebody that never went to the field.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're out there and you're walking point, your asshole's puckered so tight. And, you know, even like when you dig in at night for your RON, even in a hatchet force environment where there's 100 of you, there's still, there may be 100 of us, but there may be 2 or 3 companies that have been sent to kick our ass. And so you're always on alert. And that's what's so nerve wracking, that when you would come back from a mission, I remember one that it was Hotel 9. So anybody that knows what Hotel 9 is,
Bad news.
You stay awake for 3 nights in a row on Green Hornets. And when you come back, I slept for 42 hours.
Damn.
But unfortunately, drugs and alcohol played a part for a lot of guys. I drank to the excess. My drug of choice was rice wine with my yards. But man, that stuff would mess you up. Ask John Holland.
Oh, we've got pictures to verify. In action.
Yeah, and but while you're on a mission, you are so focused on what's going on, and in the back of your mind, you know that the next step you take, all hell may break loose. And so you're at that all day long as you're moving. You are high state of readiness, I guess, is
on top of having to eat green hornets and the insanity that causes behind you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I considered myself very fortunate in a lot of different ways, but the learning all you can from the old guys, I can't understate that a bit. That was, to me, probably, I want to say that I learned more from the older experienced guys than I did in training group. And in some ways that's true. In other ways, well, the old guys didn't teach me how to read a map, because we learned that in a compass in training group. So there's me on the right, my buddy Glenn Yamura, the third guy. We still can't figure out who he was. I think his first name was Bill, but I'm not sure. And then you got the Baron, Bob Bechtold, and Glenn and Bob have passed. So I kind of feel like I'm,
the last amigo.
The last of the 4 amigos there.
And we just recently, well, you've already got a set, but we recently found where Mr. Ken Bird, I think he was a class behind you, or maybe
Birdman was a class behind me.
Yeah. So we've got another interesting group of names here in the group that have been shared with some of the guys sharing.
Oh, you look at the list of names, and then you look at SOG, and half them names are on there. Now, I don't remember how many guys were in my graduating class, but, and I've told the story before that there was 11 of us that got together, and I delivered a dozen red roses to Miss A up at the Pentagon, and she wasn't there, so I didn't get to actually meet her. But I gave her our names and serial numbers and that, and said we all want orders for Vietnam when we graduate. And come graduation day, and they handed out orders, there was 11 of us that had orders for Vietnam. And this is another one of them things that a lot of the interviews you've done, I find it interesting that you hear different versions of how did I go from going to Vietnam to being in SOG. And they're similar, but yet different.
Some of them are way out of the woodwork.
I mean, some guys are saying they got orders from Bragg. They got orders for SOG, which I have a hard time believing, simply because that's not the way it worked. You had to be assigned to 5th group first. And I think that's just a memory issue, you know, after all these years. So we get to Nha Trang, to 5th Group headquarters, and then we spend a week filling sandbags. And yeah, there's some validity to what they told us. That's to get you accustomed to the heat. And that's true. It did. We hated every minute of it because we felt like we were just a bunch of hired hands filling sandbags, but you know. And then we spent a week of training out on Hantre Island. There's 5th Group headquarters. And then the sergeant major comes in, and he's Myron Bowser. I'll never forget his name. And he says, you guys, and keep in mind, this is the beginning of or middle of October 68. So this is at the height of all the major losses at both Khartoum and right after the August 23rd situation at CCN when they lost so many guys. He says, there's a golden opportunity here for you to volunteer for something. He said, it's so secret, I can't even tell you what it is. But if you're looking for adventure, this is it. And of the 11 of us who went over together, 10 of us raised our hand and volunteered for something unknown. So they send us to Da Nang, to what later became CCN. At that time, it was FOB 4. So we go to Da Nang. Colonel Barr, I think was his name.
Roy Barr. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was his name. And the sergeant major, who I don't remember his name, they come in and welcome, you know, and you guys have volunteered for something. And before we can tell you what you volunteered for, you got to sign this non-disclosure that you won't talk about it for 20 years. And if you do, you get 20 years in Leavenworth. So all 10 of us signed the thing. Sergeant Major pulls back the curtain, and here's this map of Laos and Cambodia and the DMZ and North Vietnam. And he's like, you guys have just volunteered to go where very few men have gone before you. You know, I guess he was trying to kind of lighten the impact of it a little bit. And we're just all sitting there with our jaws on the table like, what the hell did we just volunteer for? Because before we graduated from training group, one night after class, one of our instructors stayed over, and we were just sitting around shooting the shit. And that was unusual. But since we were getting ready to graduate, I guess he
was past the point of treating y'all like recruits.
Well, and I can imagine what was going through these instructors' minds, knowing that we're being trained to go over there and how many of us are going to come home. You know, so I could see where that might weigh on them a little bit too.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
But anyway, we asked him, what's this secret project that we keep hearing about? And he's like,
stay away.
Volunteer when you get over there and you'll find out. But he says, I can't tell you. I'm not going to tell you. Wow. It's that secret. So anyway, so we volunteer, and then they
did it sound like he might have maybe been in the project or just knew of it through the grapevine?
I think he'd been in the project because he kind of indicated that he knew a lot more than what he was willing to talk about. So yeah, very possible he'd been in, or he may have heard about it. But you know, there's a lot of the 5th Group guys that like went to A teams and stuff. They had no clue what SOG was.
No.
Because you didn't talk about it.
No.
Right. So anyway, they give us orders. And like in my case, my orders were for FOB 2 at Khartoum. And it's like, okay.
What?
Well, we get on a Blackbird at the airfield, and we had our own private planes. They were C-130s that were painted black and green with no markings, and they were crewed by Filipinos. And I go to the airport, Da Nang airfield, and I get on this C-130, and you know, I'm brand new. I've been in country 2.5 weeks maybe. And there's this up front, there's this curtained off area. And you know where I'm going with this. I'm curious, right? Well, I start to pull the curtain back, and this guy sticks a 45 in my face. And he said, no, you don't come in here. And these were Americans. So he said, go sit down. So I go sit down. Well, I never knew, but they had all kinds of, it was probably part of ASA, Army Security Agency, or one of them super spook things. But I later learned that, yeah, it was full of all kinds of real sophisticated communications equipment. They were monitoring NVA radio transmissions and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so I get to Khartoum, they pick me up at the airfield, and I can't remember if anybody was with me or not. I don't remember. But anyway, we get there and we check in, and they said, go over to S4, you're going to the yard camp. Go over to S4 and draw your gear, and we'll get somebody to pick you up and take you up to the yard camp. And it's like, I'm like, what the hell's the yard camp? Well, you'll find out when you get there. And that's kind of the way a lot of questions got answered. You'll know when the time is right. So I go over to S4, and there's this E7 named Howard, and he's like, well, what kind of weapon do you want to carry? I said, what do you mean? And he says, pick your poison. You can carry an SKS, you can carry an AK, you can carry a Swedish K, you can carry a grease gun, you can carry an Uzi, or you can carry an M16, whatever you want. I said, well, for right now, I'll stick with an M16. I don't know. So, yeah, I draw all my gear, and they send me a Jeep down from the yard camp to pick me up. And I asked Howard, I said, what's the yard camp? And he said, oh, we've got a second camp that's about 3 miles down the road because there's not room here for everybody. Okay. So somebody came and picked me up, takes me back to the yard camp. I get there and I meet Captain Goulet, bless his soul, and Jim Jerson, the XO, and they're both KIAs. And they give me my room. I go put all my gear in there, and I meet the rest of the guys in the Hatchet Force, and they explain to me a little bit about the purpose of the Hatchet Force. And then Goulet drops the bomb on me. He says, you've got about 2 weeks to get up to speed, and we're going on a slam. And I'm like, okay, what's a slam? And he says, a couple of times a year we go in and force, and SLAM stands for search, locate, annihilate, and monitor. But we change monitor to mutilate because we're sick people, So I had 2 weeks to, and we're getting ready to lead into one of the other questions that Bud had on Hotel 9. So they're explaining to me, and they had a map from a previous mission, and they're showing me how the AOs are all like Hotel 9, Hotel 10, Lima this, Lima, H alphabetically, and then a number. And each AO was a 6 by 6 kilometer square. So you got about 3 miles by 3 miles square, roughly. So I got 2 weeks of training, and I mean, every single day we're down on the range out behind the camp. This might be a good time just to quickly pop up the picture of the aerial one of the yard camp. Yeah. We had our own range, and the recon teams would come from down at the FOB and use the range too. And sometimes it was a coordination thing. Oh my God, I hate okay. You can't see it in this picture, but the entrance to the yard camp was at the top of the picture. The range was out of sight of this picture down in the lower right corner, back in there. You can kind of see a road going down there, and that road, it went down to the range, and we had a range down there. One of the funny pictures that Bud has is when we were training the yards throwing grenades. Yeah, that picture just doesn't go. It's really, the purpose of it was to show the yard camp, but
What's all this stuff back here outside of the actual camp?
that's the engineer camp.
Ah.
So you can see that dark line. Okay, now move your cursor up right along that darkness. Now go left just a hair. You see that dark line? Okay, now go up, stop. You see that zigzag? That was a pathway going from the engineer camp over to our camp, because sometimes the engineers would come over and trade for stuff, or they like to drink in our club, you know. And,
okay, so this was a non-SOG engineer group with by y'all.
They were like an asphalt group, and again, you can't see it off the picture, but in the lower left, they had an asphalt plant, and so they took care of the roads, the blacktop roads.
Wow.
And below where you're at, if you go down outside, so there's our wall. Those 4 buildings right there that are vertical, those were some of the families of some of our yards.
Oh.
And we had them rigged with explosives. So if the bad guys, if we were really in danger of being taken out, we could blow those buildings. But, you know, we're not going to blow them with our yard's families in there.
No, God, no.
Um,
And was this was since this is where the families are living? Is this just your all around family area? No training, no troop activity going.
There was minefields.
Oh shit!
From about where your cursor is going over to the right, and over in there, and now go up along that road to the right. That whole area in there was mined.
Oof.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I was told is that the yard camp at one time, it started out as an A camp.
Oh.
And so,
because they had the Pontoon Mike Force B-24 right down the road from y'all.
You know, and I never, well, they were on the other side of the FOB, on the north side. So they were probably 5 miles from us, you know. So the yard camp, we liked it because we were away from the headquarters down at the FOB. But we trained, and then at the end of December, my buddy Bob Sheridan, who we went over together. Bob we know he was killed, but the body was left behind, and so we sent 2 platoons in, and that's when my buddy Jim Jerson was killed, and Bob Howard saved his body from falling into the hands of the NVA in the ambush, and that's why Howard finally was awarded the Medal of Honor. So we were losing people right and left, and so going back to, you know, sometimes I get off on tangents.
No, that's why we love listening to you. Like the people just said, we can listen to this all day.
You had questions from a viewer or two about Hotel 9. So this SLAM mission that we were going to go on in November '69, Hotel 9. So about the only thing I knew at that time about Hotel 9 was if you go to Hotel 9, you're going to get shot up, plain and simple, because Hotel 9 was the regimental base camp area for the 66th NVA Regiment, who were the ones that totally tore up the 173rd at Dak To in 1967. Mm-hmm. So this was their regimental base camp area. So we're going to we're going to go into Hotel 9 and get our asses kicked. Another question that we had before this show was talking about loading up to actually go on a mission. So Bud's got a couple of my pictures of we're on the LZ, the chopper pad out in front of the yard camp, and you can kind of see how we grouped everybody. It's kind of interesting. The Hueys and the King Bees, 5 or 6 guys fully loaded was max. That was considered a full load. So you can imagine how many choppers it took to move 105 men. And
and choppers, were they mostly King Bees also?
We had every damn. So you see where you can see like there's some of us, and then a ways down there's another group. Each of those groups, and I can't remember his name. I want to say it was David Higgins, who I went through training group with, but I'm not sure on the ID of him. But you see all the little clusters of guys. Each one of those clusters was a chopper load all the way down, going out of sight. And we could land probably, at least maybe 7 or 8 choppers. You see, we're going in heavy. We were taking supplies. And
hell, y'all got a ton of wall.
Yeah, look at all that was a combination of sea rations and ammo. Well, Hotel 9, you're going to be in contact. It's just the way it is.
And I think in Joe's book it says that that y'all are suspectedly going in on a truck part.
Well, let's face it, if it's the 66 NVA's regimental base camp, there's got to be a truck part because they've got to have somewhere to get all their supplies. And a regiment, you're looking at 1,000 men. So there had to be a very large truck pack. But look at all the little groups. So I think, I'm trying to remember, I think we could get maybe 8 or maybe more choppers at one time. So they would load up, take everybody to Dock Tow. They'd come back, and any guys that they couldn't get, they'd come back and get the rest of them, take them up to Dock Tow. And then we would launch across the border into, and the same thing. They'd usually have to make 2 trips to get everybody on the ground. And so we go into Hotel 9. Well, that's my interpreter, Goy, Goy, Goi. So we go into Hotel 9. Both companies, no less. So you've got Company A from down at the FOB plus Company B that I was in from the yard camp. Yep, there's a King Bee loading up. So we're going along this ridge. Now, unlike today's world where you have GPSs and all that was my brother. He was in the Marines and he got shot before I did. The maps were based upon aerial photographs taken by the French in 1952. So if you can imagine triple canopy jungle, an aerial photo, it looks like a hill or a mountain with a bunch of, really heavily forested. Well, it turns out in this particular case, this mountain that we were traversing was actually 3 mountains. Straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down. So Company B, we're up in the point, and I'm in the point element with Captain Goulet, Jerson, my interpreter, and 3 yards were the very forward point. We get down to the bottom of the second hill, and there's clear, nice, clean water running, so we're all filling our canteens. And you look, because we got to go up the next hill, right? And according to the map, once we get up on that next hill, we go down the other side, we cross the road. Clue number one, that this is not a good spot to be. Clue number two, we cross the open area and get up to the next high ground before nightfall. Well, there's steps cut into the mountain all the way up. So everybody gets puckered up and we're on alert. We get to the top and Goulet's like, damn it, we can't see out because of the trees. I want to make sure that open area is in fact an open area, because otherwise we could maybe get ourselves in a little bit of trouble. So I take my rucksack off and I start to unbuckle my pistol belt. And I said, let me climb this tree and see if I can see out. Well, what we later found out is we walked right up and our point guys, I don't know what happened because they were all three killed, but all of a sudden all hell broke loose and those 3 yards were killed. Goulet and Jerson are pinned down and me and my interpreter are pinned down. And I took a bullet in the flash hider of my rifle, so my rifle's no good. I had bullets across my rucksack. I'm laying on the ground, and so they were parallel to the ground. And I had 3 bullet holes in my ruck. And we're pinned down. We can't do shit. Well, then the guys still coming up the hill, they must have got hit with rifle grenades, is what I figure it was, or maybe hand grenades. I don't know. Anyway, I crawled over to them, and one of the guys at the very top, one of the yards, was wounded, but he was an M79 guy. I took his M79 and a bandolier of ammos. And again, this is one of them things you can't predict. And we've been asked this question numerous times. There's no way to predict how a person is going to act when that first time they're in combat. Well, for me, it was just instinctively, it's like, what am I going to do? And I got this M79 and I crawled back over and the bad guys are still spraying us. And I started firing straight, almost straight up, just barely an incline, like a mortar. Because an M79 HE round has to go 15 yards before it arms itself. So I'm shooting straight up, almost straight up, come down. And I'd love to say it was skill, but I'm going to say it was pure luck. I killed all the bad guys, however many of them there were, because there was all kinds of blood trails and shit. And one of the weapons that I picked up was an M16 that we found out later Saigon traced the serial number back, and it had been taken by the 66th NVA Regiment from the 173rd at the Battle of Dak To in 1967. Damn. So we knew we are in deep, deep stuff. And so we, cover the dead with ponchos. We had a bunch of wounded to treat. And Company A, they retreated back to the hill we had just come off. So we got 2 hills, each with a full company on each hill. So we spend the night, and that's when I got introduced to Mr. Green Hornet. Because all night long you're hearing trucks pull up at the bottom of the hill and tailgates drop, and you hear whistles and megaphones and stuff. So they're bringing tons of people in, and they're going to wipe us off the face of the earth. Nothing happened all night long, but of course we're on full alert. So the next morning, they were able to bring. King Bee comes in and lowers on a rope, lowers a can of gas and oil and a chainsaw. And we blew some trees and then cut trees up with the chainsaw to clear an LZ, because there was no LZ. This was a hilltop, heavily treed, and there's no way to get in there and get the bodies out or to get us out. And the decision was made based on, I guess, all the trucks and that from the night before. The decision was made to pull Company B out, but they left as I recall, they left Company A in, and I can't speak to what happened with Company A then because, we got pulled out. But that was my introduction to Hotel 9. And then Goulet came to me a couple of days later, well, him and Jerson, and they said, we're writing you up for a Silver Star for what you did. And here's me, young and stupid. And I'm like, I was just doing my job. I don't need a medal. Well, I guess the word got out, and for the next 18 months, I didn't get any other medals other than the CID. But, it ain't going to buy you a cup of coffee today.
But it would have been nice for
it'd
you
be
to
nice
be
to look back and
recognized.
say, yeah, like some of these other guys that write the books and stuff, I got a Silver Star. But whatever, the main thing is
You did your job and got
on doing shit that's going to get you medals, you're probably going to end up dead. The focus has got to be on surviving and the survival of all your men. And as most of the older listeners know, I love my yards like no others. I love them. Yeah. And they took good care of me. The whole time I was there, they took real good care of me. Part of it may had to do with the fact that I had a Montagnard wife and, village chief under the table and all that kind of stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned your Montagnard wife, because I don't know if you've read a book by Alan Cornett, who is a Special Forces medic and ended up in Project Delta and then the LRPs and had a runaround, but he ended up the last duty he was in, I forgot if it was a advisory team. I think it was an advisory team. He got a Vietnamese wife, or it may have been a Montagnard wife also, and went through the Vietnamese wedding and were married, but it wasn't on the books marriage on as the commander said. And his commander had some terrible words about Vietnamese women and Montagnard women, and saying they were only good for two things. And he took great offense to that and was going to ask, I'm going to marry this woman and take her back home. And he berated him and then spoke ugly about her. He went back to the hooch, drank a 12-pack, some rum, and went and got a frag and was deciding, should I kill this dude or should I just scare him? Thank God the scaring side took over. He threw it in to scare him to where he had enough time to jump out, and he still almost killed the CO, and they had a shitstorm over that.
It's really funny because when I first got to the yard camp, one of the hooch maids, these were the gals that did our laundry and cleaned our rooms and all that. That first night I was there, I guess it was those baby blue eyes. So we hit it off that first night, and for the next year and a half. And at one point in time, they took me to the village and had a ceremony, and, the rice wine and the meat and all that. That's her in the background. And a ring. They gave me a ring and everything. The guy on the right of me, that was me drinking the rice wine. The guy on the right was my roommate, Wayne Anderson, who was killed December 3rd, which is coming up, 1969. Yeah, that's Wayne and Terry Minahan.
Oh my God, that's Terry?
That's Minnie. He wore those, Army glasses.
Damn, I got to write that down. I did not know that was Terry.
He was a big boy.
Wow.
And real quick, I'll just answer Show's question. I was there, not present when Goulet was killed, They had moved him out of Company B and moved him over to Company A. And yeah, the story about how he died, we won't go into it, but yeah, it's a crying shame.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, totally unnecessary. So we talked about Hotel 9. Then there was Bud and I talked, there was kind of a follow up to that. So that was in November of 68. In February of 69, February of 69, we're going back into Hotel 9, guys. Okay, fine. We go into Hotel 9, and of course, we lasted 2 days. And we got shot out, like always, because they know you're coming, because they had their mole in Saigon. And so we got shot out after 2 days. And coming out, you're sitting on the Huey, your legs hanging over the side. There's all these little ants running around down on the ground, which were bad guys, and they're shooting up at you. And all of a sudden, I guess it's a 37 millimeter that fired the flak, and there's all these black puffs of smoke. And the door gunner leans over to me and yells, "Flak." He sits back up, and all of a sudden, he grabs his face, and I get splattered with blood. He caught some shrapnel in his face. It did not kill him, fortunately, but it was bad. And then all of a sudden, you hear this. I don't know if the right word is a klaxon, but it's like a siren on the chopper. Well, the pilot or co-pilot leans back, or maybe it was the other crew chief. He yells, "We're going down, hang on." And the Huey was designed, if they lost the engine or the transmission, it would go into auto rotation, which is a big spiral. And they'd gradually spiral until they finally hit the ground. Well, when they hit the ground, it slams in, and the Hueys just had those metal skids. There were no shock absorbers or tires or anything to absorb the impact. I broke my back, but we all get off, and I didn't even realize I broke my back at the time. And, they told me to plant my C4 on around the dash of the chopper, and then they were going to let the Cobras take care of it. So the chase ship lands, and I'm pretty sure it was Joe Parnar was flying chase. And, that's the whole purpose. They pick us up, and he starts working on the door gunner that got wounded. And we got up at altitude and watched the Cobras come in. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why don't they come in and lift it out and take it back and repair it? But then I'm thinking, shit, we're in Hotel 9. Ain't nobody going to come in and get down on the ground and rig it up and pull it out. Everybody would get shot down. So, and my Montagnard girlfriend / wife, of course, when it came time to go home, she had, been moved, and she was no longer in the picture, I guess. I've always wondered not only happened to her, but all of my yards. I just loved them. And it's one of those things. So again, that's another Hotel 9 story. But every SOG guy who ever went into Hotel 9, and guys who never went in Hotel 9 but have heard the stories, Hotel 9 and Oscar 8, which was really a CCN AO, those are the two that nobody wanted to go into, because you knew you knew it's going to hit the fan, and you're going to be lucky to come out of it unscathed.
Also, the Lima target where you
Lima
got shot, actually,
Right.
that was another Robert and Bob Sheridan. I just noticed, and I can't show it; it'll give me a copyright strike. It's a photo attributed to you in your sections of with Siebel and Mr. Grahn. A Captain John Martin in one of the photos, and I had
Yeah.
never noticed who that was with Captain Goulet. Who was God, my voice? Who was Captain Martin? I don't ever remember him being spoken about.
Well, so at the end of December, when '68, when Jerson was killed going in after Sheridan's body, he was our XO. So there was a constant churn, I'll call it, of officers coming in and out. So at that particular time, he was our XO.
Yard Camp XO, it says here now.
He didn't stay there very long, because
Okay.
when I came back at the end of April from the hospital, he was already moved on.
Off FOB2, like gone.
All I knew, he was no longer at the yard camp. He might have been down at the FOB, but I was still at the yard camp. Yeah, I'm in the book now. I'm trying to. What page is that on?
232, and it actually gives guys. If y'all don't have the book, me and Terry are looking at Joe Parner's SOG Pontoon with Joe Walker on the front, and I'm actually glad because it gives a full breakdown of all of the Americans on the operation that Mr. Terry was shot on, with Mr. Goulet, Captain John Martin, First Lieutenants Vernon Ward, who we've had on with Mr. Terry, David Bramlett, Robert Sheridan, KIA, John Holland, and Robert Grahn, with Mr. Terry Cadenbach, Siebel, and Oliver Garcia, and Hank Cramps, who I just recently learned was the head of the motor pool who got out with y'all.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these guys, he was from what I remember, he was like a stock car racer back in Alabama or wherever.
A gearhead, gearhead.
Yeah. And so what they do, instead of putting him on a team, they put him in the motor pool to keep our stolen vehicles running. There's that one picture of Siebel in the chapter about the attack on the yard camp.
Yeah.
And that picture, if you go on a little bit further, the pictures of Siebel and Ron, that I took that picture. That was when I got shot the first time in Lima 6. So they just used the picture of Siebel again, to show him.
That's a good photo of them, and all of these photos that you have are really good. I was glad to finally see a photo of y'all's medic, Ronnie Brown. I'd heard a lot about him and never seen a photo of him.
Ronnie Brown, from what I understand, I'd love to hook up with him again. I understand he's still alive, and he lives on a reservation in Nevada, maybe.
Oh, damn.
Or somewhere. I don't remember which tribe he was from.
My secret stash of numbers and names.
Yeah.
Let's see if I've got his listing here.
But I tried to find him a few years ago, and somebody said he was still alive, but he was kind of like a recluse on reservation.
A lot of the guys, it seems like, have done that here lately. Didn't really want to be in the SOA or associated with anything. And
not everybody lived to go on live in a nudist camp, except for one guy we know and love. Oh, love. Okay. Yeah. We won't mention his name, Tony.
I've got, he doesn't, he loves it. He's talking about Tony, guys. Hell, I got a few, Browns here. Andrew Brown, which was a medic at CCC. Rickland Brown. No, no,
Well,
Ronnie.
Ron Brown, he was our medic up at the yard camp.
I'll keep a lookout for him and see if we can figure out about him. Oh, I had a very interesting question when we were talking before we spoke the other day. I was speaking to Joe Parnar, and he was the medic. Let me get a swig of water for the love of God. And I can't remember the exact date. I'll have to look it up. But were you in Khartoum at the time when Scarface Brown, Jim McGlon, and Jim Golden were attacked downtown and shot up by that Arvin lieutenant and
I
killed?
think so. I think that was in early '69.
I think so as well. And that was the time when they weren't allowing y'all to carry weapons.
Yeah, well, good luck with
That changed very quickly.
Did you ever
Colonel
hear of
Barr
a
was
shoulder
like,
holster?
yeah, Colonel App was like, y'all don't leave the compound without a weapon.
Yeah.
Yes, Jason, Dick Thompson, and Bob were very good friends, actually,
Yeah.
very good, and we're hoping to end up at CCN together.
Sheridan, unfortunately, Sheridan did not like me because I had the Montagnard girlfriend. He just thought that was wrong.
Too far.
But, yeah, he went to Ranger School, and I have a funny story about him, but it's not one. It's a funny story, but I don't want, and I have pictures to go with it, but those are not pictures that I share.
We follow. Not safe for work viewing, as it's known.
Yeah.
NSFW. There was a question that came in. I think I saw it on one of the Facebook pages, but it got me to thinking because I had recently spoken with a security company, Montagnard, and then a sergeant. Actually, the captain, Jason, can help me out. I'm blanking on Matt Baylor. He was in security co at FOB2. Did you happen to know, or were you close with any of the support staff or the security company guys or anything, like not any guys that were on operations and such that were helping y'all out?
Didn't even know him.
Didn't know.
Again, at the yard camp. Yeah, at the yard camp, we had Company B of the Hatchet Force, and we had a Montagnard security company. But to my knowledge, I don't remember any Americans that were involved with that security company at the yard camp. And then, oh, Jason, you're going to get me in trouble if I tell that story. Oh, my. But down at the FOB, that's where you had like your clerks and like, for instance, like Frank Greco. He was on a recon team. And then when he came off of recon, he worked in the photo lab developing all the pictures. And thank God he was able to save a lot of negatives, and that's why he was able to do the 2 books.
Then you had the medic people. I didn't realize FOB2, the actual compound, until talking to Joe much more in depth. That, I mean, y'all had a hell of a medical operation. I mean, y'all have travel-in surgeons to come in to view what that y'all were doing.
The dentist came, I want to say once a month.
I was curious about that, how y'all took care of y'all's teeth while in.
They had a dentist come in.
That's crazy cool. Wow.
If you can imagine, Vietnam, you're sitting in a dispensary with a dentist working on your teeth without all the fancy equipment that you see today, And the interesting thing about the FOB, to me, made no sense at all. But yeah, the Highway 14 ran right down through the middle of the FOB. Now, the yard camp, we were all on one side. We were on the east side of the highway, but at the main FOB, so 6 o'clock every night, they'd put the barricades up, and you ain't going through. And then 6 in the morning, they open the road up again so traffic can go, north and south. But yeah, it was, I just didn't think it made good tactical sense to have a classified compound on both sides of the highway. But it wasn't my show.
You can see the little roadblocks they've got up, and there's photos of recon teams and hatchet force guys walking, back to the main compound. Very crazy.
And I don't remember if the security, I think down at the FOB, there were Americans that were assigned to the security company, as opposed to like at the yard camp. I don't think we had any Americans.
Well, a few Nungs were still around, and then Montagnards. Most of the Nungs had worked hard enough to where they were getting good, cushy security jobs and such.
Yeah. So should I tell the Colonel App story?
I think a good Colonel App story will always do good for a show.
It's a funny one. So at the beginning of January of '69, Captain Goulet decided that it would be a good morale thing that the first weekend of each month, we would have what became known as pig parties. And as a part of those parties, we required entertainment. So I was picked to be the procurement officer. And so I would go to town, and I'd let them know a couple of days ahead of time. I'd have to go to town with a 2.5 and a 3/4 ton trucks and fill them up with ladies and bring them back to camp for the weekend. So when Colonel App took over, Colonel App, immediately he heard about the pig parties, because we were considered animals up at the yard camp because we did our own thing. And Goulet, he wasn't afraid of anybody. We're going to do our own thing, and it's a morale thing. And Colonel App, when he took over, he was a Mustang, which means he was an enlisted guy, had prior combat experience, and he was probably one of the best commanders. Everybody will tell you that. Cared about his people, whereas some officers, all they cared about was what looked good on their efficiency report for promotion. So anyway, he wanted to come to our party. So this particular party, for whatever reason, I was running late. So curfew was 6 p.m. Well, I had to go through the FOB into Khartoum and round up everybody. And it was about 6 minutes after 6. And of course, the MPs hated us. That's a given. And at that time, I didn't know it until I got back to camp, but you could see behind the motor pool, Cramps had a tanker truck full of fuel that had been acquired somewhere. And the MPs could see it back there, but they could not come on our compound because it was a classified compound, right? So here's a chance. You got a special forces guy after curfew in town with 2 truckloads of ladies. So this guy, they pull up in a Jeep, and this guy goes to stand up and puts his hands on his M60 that's mounted on a swivel. Well, I'm wearing a 45 on my hip, and I beat him to the draw, I guess we'll call it. Well, the next thing I know, I got about 3 more Jeeps pulling up with machine guns on the back. So I get arrested, and they take me in for being out after curfew. Big crime. I mean, I'm a major criminal. But they take me in, and I don't remember how it worked, but they had a phone, and I was told to call the camp and they needed to have an officer come. Well, I called and I said, I'm on a mission for Colonel Apt. You need to let him know that I've been arrested for being after curfew, even though I'm on this classified mission. He said, we'll get the word to him. It was probably a half hour later. Here comes a Jeep with Goulet and Colonel Apt. And this MP second lieutenant thinks he's just the baddest dude on the planet. And Colonel Apt comes in and he locks this guy up against the wall, this lieutenant up against the wall. And he said, this man's on a classified mission under my orders, and you've got the nerve to arrest him, blah, blah, blah. He said, you're going to give him his weapon back, and we're going to walk out of here, and you're going to make believe like it never happened, or I'll have your rank, and you'll be on the next plane out of here. Colonel Apt, what can I say?
I mean, I've heard between his just standing up for you guys, him partying with you guys, to playing basketball. I mean, this is one of my favorite photos. I've got a few more that I can't show, but I mean, he'd get right there with y'all and get 3 sheets to the wind. I mean, just outstanding guy. I mean, I've literally not spoke to a CCC veteran or anyone that knows him that did not say that he was probably, if not the best SOG commander that was at a CNC.
I can't remember who the recon guy was, but when Apt first got there and they were playing basketball, he's wearing camouflage shorts and flip-flops, and this guy bumped him or something, and then somebody introduced him. This is Colonel Apt, the new commander. You know,
Dan Stir.
and the colonel, he just laughed it off.
Oh yeah, loved it.
But another just real quick funny story to tell you what kind of guy he was. When we closed the yard camp, we had tons of shit going in the trash, right? And I picked out some stuff like an old BAR ammo pouch that goes on your belt, you know, because I hunt back home, and I thought that'd be a great place to put some 30-06 rounds and whatever. So I got a bunch of this stuff and sent it home. Well, I get called to the FOB, and Colonel Apt is like, I got this paperwork from the MPs that you're shipping contraband military equipment home. And I told him what I sent. It's like BAR pouches and, you know, a bunch of old crap like, well, you have one of the things that I sent home, a pair of leggings, and brand new, never issued. And I acquired 2 pair of them and I shipped them home. Well, for some reason, even though they opened the box and they did all this, they let the package go through and it went home. So Colonel Apt, he's like, after I told him what kind of stuff it was that I sent home, he says, well, I'm supposed to give you an Article 15. That's what the MPs want me to do. But he said, we're going to make believe like this never happened, and the paperwork gets lost in the shuffle somewhere. So again, that's Colonel Apt. He was cool. He could have given me an Article 15 and it would have cost me some money. It might have cost me a stripe, but not with Colonel Apt. He ain't playing those chicken shit games, you know. So that was Colonel Apt.
Like I forgot who said it, but I'm reading the history of Project Delta right now, and somebody was talking about, you know, that when they first got started, it was just a nightmare because they were in Tent City and were drinking like hot beer and all that, and they finally built a nice club, and a lot of the people were like, this is too much, they don't deserve this, you know. And it wasn't Beckwith, it was the guy before Beckwith, and then Beckwith said it as well. But he was like, well, when you pick up a weapon and you go out there behind enemy lines like they're doing and get that type of information and intel that they're getting, then you come back and you can tell them that they don't deserve this. But until you start doing stuff like that, I'm not going to tell the boys what they can and can't do when they're back home.
Exactly.
So I was like, that's a leader right there.
Well, it looks like we've got some questions about the yard camp taking hits. So you want to
We've
just
got one actually that we missed for Jason before the yard camp hit. Jason said we've heard about recon team target folders. What were the mission briefings like in general for a hatchet force than anything more for a mission like J9 or H8?
Well, when you go into a mission briefing, when you first walk into the briefing, you don't know what's going on. All you know is you're going to a briefing for a mission. So you go into briefing, and of course, they got the map, and they pull the curtain back, and they show you the AO and all this crap, and there's plastic over it so they can write on it with a
whiteboard marker and
whatever, erasable marker. So anyway, then they go through all the information that they have in the folder, the mission folder, or target folder, really. And that would have all previous missions that have gone into, for instance, Jason's questions about Hotel 9. But, okay, every mission that we've ever put into Hotel 9, all that information is compiled in this folder. So you have coordinates, for instance, where they believe the truck park may be located, trails, known trails, and the roads and all that stuff. And at one point in time, we were told to start marking where we left toe poppers because we had guys stepping on our own shit. And we should have been doing that all along. And I read one account that said we were doing it back in early 69, and that's not true. It probably was middle 69 when we were told to start marking on the maps and that. But all that kind of stuff would be in a target folder. And so, and you'd have information about such and such a team went in on, say, a road watch operation, and this is what they were observing. Another team went in and they found bamboo huts and looked like a training area and all that. And so by the time...
Are there any weather? I mean, I know Vietnam weather is either it's raining or it's not, but was there a weather in perspective in this?
They would talk about, this is the forecast, but it's not very accurate because back in those days, they didn't have the weather
Doppler radar and all of
that. Yeah, they didn't have all that. So it was very
rudimentary,
minimal, very crude weather forecast. Wow. All we knew is when we get to Dak To to launch, depends on the weather. If
clear, we're going. It's not, we ain't.
Where you're going. Because the weather could be completely different. Well, it's just like here. Mm-hmm. Where I live, I'm up on what I call a plateau on high ground. And a lot of times the rain comes right up Interstate 44 out of Oklahoma. And it comes right up I-44, but then it seems like when it gets close to where I'm at, it goes to the south of me and it goes to the north, and I can hear and see thunder and lightning and all that. And they'll get an inch or two of rain, and I won't get a drop where I'm at. So it was like that. Well, you figure like Laos, all those mountains and stuff, you got fog plus the rain. And when clouds hit mountain ranges, they usually start dropping. So the weather would be minimal. So the big concern would be, can we put you in when we want to put you in? And there were times when a mission would get delayed for a whole day or so because of the weather, you know.
It's going to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to go into the attack on the yard camp?
Yeah, yes, sir. That
Okay.
that would be a good one because we're here at
So
hour
the
and 40 minutes.
middle of March 69, we were receiving information that the bad guys were planning a major attack on the yard camp. Well, okay, whatever. We're ready. You're always ready. You have to be ready all the time because you never know when it might happen. And it was no different than being across the fence on a mission. You're in camp. Yeah, you may feel secure in camp, but you also, if you don't have it in the back of your head that they could hit us at any time, you ain't going to make it. So we're hearing all this word about, and Goulet and who was it? Goulet. It may have been Goulet and Bramlett. I don't remember. They went down to the FOB to get more updated information and try to lay in availability of some aircraft and whatever. And they had an issue with the MPs coming back to camp. But anyway, this might be a good point to my pictures of the mortar attack when the attack first started. The one over the club, over the poker table.
That one, oh, there it is. Just found it.
March 20th of 69, I had a reel-to-reel tape deck and a transistor radio, and I was recording music off of AFVN, Armed Forces Vietnam Radio. And I hear thump, thump, and I yelled incoming. Well, this was our bar, and right to the right of it, you can just see the wood on the wall. Hush. The dog is growling. That was our poker table. The first round landed directly over the poker table, and then the next round landed 5 feet from it over the bar. And the attack began. So we had sent, Goulet had sent Alan Farrell and Seibel out with a couple of yards as like a listening post. And as the attack got going, I mean, we were getting hit with rockets and mortars, and then they made the mistake, they meaning the bad guys, made the mistake of attempting a ground attack from 3 sides. And my job, I was a floater, so my job was to go to wherever on our perimeter walls, wherever the heaviest attack seemed to be coming from. So at one point, it was coming from the east side of the camp, which kind of east, northeast was where our range was. And that's where Farrell and Seibel went. And they got surrounded by the bad guys. The next day, I'll kind of jump and then come back. The next day, after the attack, we went out there and swept the area, and we found like chains attached to trees with shackles on the end of them. We found blood trails, bloody bandages all over the place. We found counterfeit currency, which I donated to Fifth Group to the museum, and it's still sitting in a back room somewhere. That's another story. So what they were doing, and we found foil packets from heroin. So what they were doing was they were grabbing villagers, chaining them to mortars and whatever, giving them heroin to get them high, and then telling them just start lobbing mortars or whatever. But this thing went on for a few hours. But when they made the mistake of the ground attack on the FOB, food gas is, that's the indigenous showers. Food gas is 55-gallon drums filled with jelly gasoline, napalm, basically. and a white phosphorus grenade that sets it off. Well, when they started coming across the highway from what in Parnar's book they call it a temple, when they started coming across, they got onto our chopper pad, and a couple of them barrels full of flue gas went off and had barbecued gooks in the wire. And then at one point, I was on the back wall, and in the southeastern corner of the wall, I'm going to let this dog out. I'll carry the thing with me while I'm talking. We had a 50 caliber machine gun on the wall, and I got to see up close and personal what a 50 caliber, what do you call it? A 50 caliber machine gun tracer round does to a human body.
Yikes.
Yeah. And it was something. Anyway, the next morning, we went out and swept the area, and we found all that stuff. And then we went over to the engineer camp, and I could not believe the pile of bodies. And they're all wearing, I call them a diaper. I think there's probably a name for them, but that's what your sappers wear. And, you know, they tried to get through the wire and all that, but again, it didn't work. I don't know what kind of camp they thought they were going to try to overrun, but it wasn't going to be our camp. And so the engineers, they just dug a big hole and pushed them in with a bulldozer.
And that must have, if y'all had to use a bulldozer, there must have been a hell of a lot of dead bodies. I mean,
I'm guessing 30 or 40 maybe.
Whew.
But that, you know, still, our camp was not that big physically, you know. So 30 or 40 dead bad guys, you know. And who knows how many got drug off.
Absolutely, with the dragging. Yeah. Is this going to be the engineer area back here?
It must be. Yeah. See, you're looking at the engineer camp. The highway is off to the right. All the way, it's out of sight on the right. And on the left, as you go back, again, out of that picture, actually, it would probably be more like the lower left corner and a couple of 100 yards out. That was our range.
Okay.
So,
I mean, it's easy to see how they could get close up to y'all. Because, I mean, in these photos, I mean, the bush and the jungle isn't that far away from y'all's trench line and bunkers. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's right here. I mean, if they were,
that's our mortar pit. That was a 4.2 millimeter mortar pit, and then that building in the upper right was our dispensary, and then that big hole next to it, we decided to build the dispensary and put it underground for protection. And so we had that big hole dug, and then we put Connex containers in there and then covered them with dirt. And that became our underground hospital.
Damn, okay.
So at the time of the attack, we already had the Connex containers in there. And as I was moving around, I was heading to that back wall, and a mortar round landed, and Ron Brown, he got a mortar fragment in his leg. So I helped him I helped him get to the dispensary underground. And in the middle of all that, we end up delivering a baby.
Oh,
One of
Lord.
the yard wives, I mean, when it's time, it's time. But then
Wow.
I got back out on the wall. And so they hit both our camp and the engineer camp at the same time. Um, but not a single bad guy ever got inside the camps.
Is the temple that you alluded to, is that where, or is that little hut that that Alan Farrell was stuck in?
Yes. Um,
Wish I could find that photo.
yeah. Um, um,
I know I just saw it. Oh,
okay.
there it is.
That's it right there. Yeah, right there. I mean, it didn't look, I never thought of it as a temple. I know they say it was a temple, but I just thought of it as an abandoned building.
That's crazy for him. Was he and Bob Braun together, or was it just
No,
Alan?
it was Farrell and Michael Seibel.
Oh, geez, Louise.
But see, Bud, they started out way at back by the range, which would be in this picture 5 o'clock and maybe 300 yards further back. Yeah, way back in there. And they ended up working their way around when they could, and they ended up in that temple.
Damn.
I know. And the 3 yards with them, they took off and left them and came back and said that Farrell and Seibel were dead. And that's when Goulet, we sent Gran out, and it was in the morning when stuff was all over with that, we found them. But one of the yards had the radio.
Oh, Lord.
Which was a mistake, because the yard should have never been carrying the radio.
No. I mean, y'all would have known instantly where Farrell and them were. Daniel was curious, did they attack the engine? Yeah,
I just answered that.
Yeah, engineers and the yard camp. Yeah.
Yeah, because we were together. So yeah, but it was a mistake.
Kirschbaum, Mr. David, he said in like 68 and stuff, they still had fourth ID. I think they were having armor come up and down the road a lot and visiting that engineer.
Well, okay. So the FOB and the yard camp were approximately 3 miles apart. So we were about 3 miles south of the FOB. In between the FOB and the yard camp, I'm going to say roughly about halfway, was the 4th Infantry Division, Firebase Mary Lou.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So there was artillery available there. They also, when I first got there, they also, by Firebase Mary Lou, they had a supply depot. And one of the first things I learned is how we scrounge for food. We would go to this supply depot from 4th Division, and we always bribed the sergeant that was in charge of it, and we'd get out of there with a truck or two full of food. And a couple of months later, they got busted by CID, and they got arrested, and for selling food on the black market or what have you, even though it was going to Americans. But yeah, so you had that Firebase Mary Lou, but then they let they had tanks up and down that road. They had, and keep in mind, the engineers were constantly having to fix that road because the tank treads were tearing it up, the blacktop up. And they had infantry troops. And then later on, they moved the infantry guys. I think they moved south. down towards Pleiku, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, near
I never met
Campanari.
Neil Cody, but he was at the FOB. Oh, actually, he was with Captain Goulet when he was killed.
He was. I spoke to him not too long ago about
But
that.
again, it was one of those things I call compartmentalization. You know, at Hatchet Force, we pretty much kept to ourselves. Recon pretty much kept to themselves. And there wasn't a whole lot of mixing back and forth.
Yeah, it's crazy hearing about guys that grew up in the same town or like 5 miles down the road, not knowing each other until they get to SOG and realizing that they're from the same place. There's quite a few stories like that have popped up.
Well, I know I've told you the story, but I don't know that I would ever tell it publicly. But I got a hilarious, funny story about Sheridan on our way to Vietnam when we were at Seattle. I don't know. I guess I could tell it without going into too much detail about what the guy said.
Yeah.
So when we shipped out to Vietnam, we go to Fort Lewis. So we go to the formation, and they said, well, you know, shortage of airplanes, your flight's going to delay it about 3 days. So you guys are going to spend the next 3 days probably doing KP duty and stuff like that. And we're looking at each other, and we're like brand new Green Berets. We're badasses. We don't do KP. So we get on a Trailways bus, and we go to Seattle and chased horse for 3 days. Well, time to come back to Fort Lewis. So we're on the Trailways bus early one morning. It's probably 6:30 in the morning. We're at the Trailways station. And this guy, I got to try to sanitize this a little bit. So this guy gets on, and he looks like Jimi Hendrix with a white satin, what do they call that? Like a Nehru shirt, you know, with the
Dicky cravat up on the little
and the
turtleneck shit.
Glasses, and he says, I hope you motherfuckers all go to Vietnam and get killed and all this shit. And Sheridan, all the way in the back of the bus, says, this is the George Wallace for president bus. You better be getting off. And everybody busts out laughing. So this guy starts walking down the aisle towards the back. Well, I'm sitting on the driver's side of the bus. I'm sitting on the aisle seat. He gets to the row of seats right behind me. I take my glasses off, and I hand to the guy next to me, and I said, hold these for a minute. It'll only be a second. And I said, he says, the next one of you motherfuckers that laughs is going to die. Well, what I didn't know, Sheridan had a pistol. He brought a Colt Trooper Mark III, a 6-inch barrel, 357 Magnum pistol, which was verboten. You don't do that. You don't bring that shit with you. Well, I didn't know it, but he had the pistol out in his hand. I say, ha, ha, ha. And as I did, I reached up and grabbed the rail, you know, like the luggage rack rail. And I came around. The guy ends up on the ground, and I started doing a toe dance with Corcoran jump boots in his head. So he ends up laying there moaning and groaning and stuff. And one of the guys yells at me. He says, get him out of here before Sheridan gets busted with that gun. So the guy crawls off the bus, and the bus driver saw what was going on, and he called the cops. Well, the cops come, and the guy has his knife that he'd had in his hand. He's got his knife, and he slips it into the coat pocket of his trench coat. So the cops pat him down and don't find the knife. And then I gotta let the damn dog in. So they don't find the knife. And I told the driver, I said, tell him it's in the right trench coat pocket. So sure enough, they find the knife, and next thing you know, he's in handcuffs, and they haul him off. And we go on our way to Fort Lewis, and we're milling around waiting on formation to start at 8:00, and here comes this guy, and he gets off the bus, and his face is all bandaged. He looked like he looked like
The Elephant Man or something.
Frankenstein. I mean, he's got blood all over him, and bloody bandages. And one of the guys, and after all these years, I can't remember who it was, said, "I told Sheridan, you better hide that damn gun." Well, when we went through customs, when we got to Vietnam, they caught the gun and took it away from him. So some leg MP probably brought a nice Trooper Mark III home.
Jesus.
But that was Sheridan. He was crazy. And, and then he would come up to the yard camp and visit. I've got that one picture of him and Jack Young that was taken probably 2 or 3 weeks before, probably a month before he went MIA. I had a nice long conversation with his cousin last year, and I shared the story with him, but it's not a story that I share a lot because, it sounds kind of bad, but
No,
what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
what is the saying now? FAFO?
Fuck around and find out. That was,
well, this guy fucked around and he found out.
Quite literally, he did that. Well, I mean, it still amazes me. The assholes waiting on y'all to come back after just being in a war, killing people, and think that they're gonna scare y'all by saying, fuck you or baby killer or whatever, or try and threaten y'all to fight y'all. It's just like y'all are way out of y'all's depths here.
When I came home the first time after my first 13 months, I bought a brand new Corvette convertible. So I'm home for 30 days and I go back to Vietnam for another 6 months. So when I came home, I'm riding around with one of my buddies and we're in downtown St. Louis by St. Louis University. And got the top down, and I let my buddy drive, and we stop at this stoplight, and there's a bunch of these doctors. They're not doctors; they're students. They're going to St. Louis University
Pre-med
School of
turds.
Medicine, right? And they see me in my uniform, and they start yelling, "Baby killer, baby killer!" So I told my buddy, I said, "Just stop. I'll be right back." So I get out and I beat the shit out of all 3 of them. And the cops were walking their beat because of the demonstrators. They were walking across the street. These 2 cops come over and they said, "Soldier, we'll take it from here. Thanks for trying to help them. We saw them fall down."
God, thank
FAFO, right?
Thank God the cops.
I shouldn't say this, but I kind of, fighting and I were synonymous. I wrestled. I was undefeated 2 years in a row. The last fight, to this day, the last fight I ever lost was at the beginning of 8th grade. So it was kind of right up my alley. And I didn't have too many problems. When I got back the second time, instead of flying from Seattle straight to St. Louis, I had to fly to San Francisco. You know where this is going, and then to St. Louis. So I'm in the terminal in San Francisco, and of course we're all in. They issue you a dress uniform, so you have to fly military. You got to fly in uniform at that time. So here's these 2 hippies, a guy and a gal, and the gal throws a tomato at me, and I didn't realize I was that coordinated, but I caught the tomato, and they both kind of had a little accident. But I didn't have too many problems because, you deal with them. But yeah, I mean, it was,
Damn.
It was bad.
Ridiculous.
You know.
I hate to do it, but I'm coming up on dog duty time here. We need to, this has been the most we've ever had in a chat. We've had 70 active viewers the entire time, and there's still 2 going on. MJ, unfortunately, is in the other one, and chats are coming in from both of them. So I don't know what I'm about to be done. I don't understand what the hell is going on here. I apologize.
We got to figure it out.
Yeah, I'll get on that today and figure out what's going on. But we need to figure out something now for your first time in December that'll be coming up. So, guys, start messaging Mr. Terry, or if you've got something to tell him or want him to talk about, message him, message me. Jason's on. Get with Jason, and I'm just going to start going through all of my old posts and start collecting questions and just making those a full-on question. So, wow, just got a random new viewer in. This is a Vietnam vet history channel, ma'am, where we interview Special Forces veterans. Glad you happened to find the chat. I hope you stick around and watch it. But yeah, we need to start figuring out something for December for Mr. Terry to come back the first or second week and us have something going on here. So
let me say this about that. We need the questions, okay? Because that kind of helps guide us. Otherwise, we could talk for 5 or 6 hours. Every time we do one of these, I get a ton of friend requests. I end up deleting 99% of them because what I do is I look at their about information, and if it's all blank, all that. But if it's a new viewer, if I don't know their, because you can't tell from screen names and stuff. You can't tell from all that if a person's a viewer or what. If you're a viewer and you do a friend request, you need to let me know that you are a viewer. Otherwise,
shoot him a message and say you're a watcher of the Reconnaissance, and he'll immediately let you on.
Because otherwise, I'd have 15 million friends on Facebook, and I don't.
That's what we need. So I'm going to start collecting all of mine and Jason's past questions posts for questions. And I'm going to make a master list of questions that we'll just have. And each time I'm going to make a post because inevitably somebody who's never watched has a really good question. So I'm just going to do that and start building questions. So,
if we don't get enough questions, then, it's like, okay, what are we going to talk about? And there's so many new viewers, and I know, like Daniel knows, I've probably told the same stories a million times, but we want to try to keep it as interesting as we can. We don't want to bore the old viewers, but, sometimes I worry that too many the same stories over and over and over again.
Yeah, but, we're these last 2 times we've gotten better about doing that.
Yeah, we're starting to get more and more good questions, and a lot of them, so it helps us plan for the show. So let's get questions coming, and we'll do that.
Yep, I'm going to make a post about that. And Miss Teresa, glad to have you as a new viewer. I'm going to be trying to get some more vets on. I'm talking to a Korean War vet that I'm trying to have on. And under live, you can see all of them. I've got playlists. So glad to have you as a subscriber. That's really cool. Thank you. And she said, thank you for your service, Mr. Terry.
Okay, guys.
All right, guys. Yeah. As Mr. Terry said, remember, if you message him or if you send him a friend request, let him know that you're that you watched him on here, or else he's not going to let you be a friend. So do that. Start getting questions to us on social media, and we'll get something cooked up for December. So everybody have a good day. Mr. Terry, thank you for joining
I'll
us.
see you in a couple of weeks.
And we'll see y'all later.
Bye.